Hello and welcome back to the Sunday Roast, and today we are going to be speaking about how to stay on track over the festive period, and it's myself and it's Dale, and we're going to give you plenty of good advice on how you can stay on track. Dale, what's your best advice?
Right, flung right in at the deep end there. So let's kind of put it in a wee bit more, give it a bit more structure, I suppose. So getting into the festive period, how do you stay on track?
You don't.
You don't. Nah, you generally don't. I think when you look at from a point of view of, let's say, if you're someone who's been dieting for quite some time, you've lost a significant amount of weight, you've been doing really well, the past few weeks have been going fantastic, you're dropping pounds, you're feeling good. You're coming into the festive period, you probably get a few nights out. So you get 3-4 nights out, you then need to look at, right, well, let me zoom out a little bit and figure out those days. And when you actually look at what you're doing, 90% of the time, those 4 days are not going to be so detrimental. So I would look at like doing what you can up until that point, keep continuing to do what you've been doing, keep up with your training, keep up with your routines, keep up with your steps. When it comes to those days out or nights out, go and enjoy them. Like there's no kind of complicated answer there.
Nah, I think I do agree to a certain degree. I think there's certain people out there that is like, right, I've been good up for the last 12 weeks. I've made some great progress. A few nights out isn't going to damage. And then that really depends, doesn't it? It depends. Yeah, it completely depends on the limitations that you give yourself when you go out. If you go out like in the nature of the way you used to go out before you started working with a coach, or before you started dieting, before you started making progress, and you start living the life and making the decisions that you were making when you were regressing and getting heavier to the point where you were unhappy and decided you wanted to do something about it, then of course going back to making those kind of decisions and going balls to the wall with food and pints and all the rest of it could be detrimental. But why have I just went blank there? Right. But when you've been like living a life for a certain way for a certain amount of time, almost subconsciously you're going to make pretty decent decisions anyway. When you've been like tracking your food, when you've been like thinking about everything that you do before you do it for a certain amount of time, because you're trying to fit within certain parameters that you've given yourself, like your calories, your steps, all these kind of things. When you've been living your life this way for a certain time, as soon as you stop doing that for a certain amount of time, like this for people that go on holidays or people that just have a night out, you almost automatically still make better decisions because you're just so fine-tuned to living your life that way anyway. So for those people, it probably isn't going to be detrimental, but we still need to set boundaries in that case.
I think that's a great point. I think when I've had clients like this before about where they've never even mind Christmas time. They've had a great result, and it comes to like a holiday, as you said, for example, and they go and they start stressing out about it. I'm like, I don't want to go back to the way I was. I say to them, you're not that person anymore. You don't live your life in that same way. You train more than you ever have. You're more conscious about the food. That you have a so much better relationship with food, and you just have a much better, healthier lifestyle. So I don't think anyone would ever regress back to that unless they just completely flung everything out the window, which I don't think anybody would ever do, because they see the value in that.
Yeah, I think it's a big reason that I've not been taking on clients this month. Now, you'll see a lot of people marketing right now saying, don't wait till January, don't do this. And I totally agree. Like, why would you wait for something? Get started now. But when it comes to me and the way that we run our business, like, we're going to be stopping in the 18th of December. So for somebody who just starts, let's just say that they're coming from a place where they've got lots of bad habits, and we need to work really hard on breaking those habits and creating new ones. It's a tough task. Now, for us to go give you support for a couple of weeks and then go, right, that's me, I'm off on holiday for the next 2 weeks, don't want to hear from you, I'll speak to you in the 2nd of January. For those people, those nights out could be detrimental because they've not actually got into a place of these decisions that people that have been doing it a bit more longer term, they're not in a place where these things are automatic. It's, you need to think about it. You need that, maybe that accountability and support to get there. So it's almost like, depends on the stage of your journey, depends on how far you've been. Like, for somebody who's made great progress and goes on holiday and they've got these things in their locker, great. For somebody who's just starting out, it's like, the beginning of a journey, the beginning of a diet, the beginning of building those habits and routines is really, really important. So when you're like starting, you know, a week into your journey, and all of a sudden it's like festive season and you've got 5 nights out, you know, you're not quite built up the kind of systems in order to get by on that, I would say, without that support.
I think also when you look at that again, we'll just look at another person, let's say, and you look at someone who's done a decent diet or had a good fat loss result in the past, or they've been in shape before and they've kind of let things go a little bit, and then they come into Christmas and they're like, you know what, I don't really want to wait till January, I want to push through it this time, and I just want to kind of get things going. Now, as Ryan said, it's maybe not the best time for everyone to be dying at this moment, but there is some people out there that they don't want to wait till January. And when you look at the whole aspect of people say like, oh, willpower, like I just don't know, I wouldn't have the willpower to do that, and we have to think about, right, well, what really is willpower? Like we briefly spoke about that the other day, about like willpower is just essentially something that if you care about something enough, like that, you're going to do it. Like willpower isn't a case of if you smoked 40 fags a day and you turn around and your doctor's like, listen, if you don't stop smoking them within the next 3 months, you're going to be 6 foot under. Like, I can bet your bottom dollar you're going to stop smoking fags. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit morbid, right? But
it's a festive podcast, Dale.
You get the point. But it's also a Scottish. Yeah, exactly. But you get my point. That's an absolute extremity. We're talking about fat loss here, right? It's I'm not going to be dying here over the festive period, but you get what I mean. Like, that is willpower. It's the willpower is when you value something enough, you will do everything in your power to do it. Now, that being said, like, it's not as easy just like flipping a switch. Like, that's much easier if you get some detrimental news or like some horrible news that you need to change your life rapidly, you'll do that, right? But when it comes to fat loss and around about this time of year, you want to look at, right, well, how can I get better willpower, or how would I, like, almost, it can be trained like any muscle in the gym. You can look at trying to figure out your own boundaries, and I think that's what it sets down to, is like figuring out your own boundaries and essentially being able to call your own bullshit a little bit. And if you know, like, putting yourself in certain situations is going to be taking you completely away from your goal, it's going to again, when you think about opening a tub of Pringles, like, if you open that tub of Pringles, you know for a fact they're gone.
Oh, you by the way,
stop.
it's mad how true that slogan is, though. Like, see if I open a full tub of the prawn cocktail Pringles, gone.
Breast howling as well.
The usual for you, though. But seriously, though, I always like open that with good intentions. Like, I'll grab a wee handful and I'll save them for another day. I'll grab a wee handful, go back into the living room, back in the kitchen, living room, kitchen, living room, kitchen.
Honestly,
done.
I've never seen anybody eat was it Pringles as quick as that guy in my entire life. I promise you, mate. There was a time we were driving somewhere and it's like it's like your Honda just doesn't stop. It's just like, yeah, you want some of them, you look at the tub, there's about 3 left, man.
Was that in the bag?
I think so.
Do you know,
that's what it was. Sorry, we're going to way off on tangent here, but we'll tell you this story, it's quite funny. And a taxi journey thing was like an hour and a half, and we bought like this bag of like sweets and crisps, and all that. David's sitting in the front with this wee guy at the front, man, and he's like offering this the taxi driver Pringles and stuff like that. Next thing you know, he's literally within, I'm not even kidding, about 3 minutes, he's like, there's some Pringles. About 3 left.
I hope it wasn't the sour cream ones, because they're stinking. They are not nice. They're not nice Pringles.
Anyway, back to my point. So,
That by a scorpion.
listen, let's not talk about that. Right, that's for another podcast. But back to my point about boundaries. Like, it's essentially being able to call your own bullshit, putting yourself in certain situations. If you know that that's not going to, like, it's just going to tip you over the edge, then don't put yourself in that situation. Like, don't have those certain things in your house. But again, it's all like down to that person, because some people will
totally down to that person. See that thing as well, though, like people like flexible dieting, for instance, and it's like, right, I've got 100 calories left and I pure love like just a dairy milk, for instance, right? Shite snack really, but like if you think I've got 100 calories, I really love dairy milk, and it's like, but you normally, like, before your diet, maybe you'd have spent 400 calories on dairy milk, and that's like that little trigger food for you. You're actually sometimes just better just wiping those things out entirely. Some people can't have little bits, but then some people can. Some people, it's like, I look forward to that, that's my part of the day, and it's just that individual thing, isn't it?
Right.
But again, like what you're saying with the whole boundaries thing, it's like, when it comes to willpower, I think like, and it's so cliche, you'll see every PT's done a post about this on their Instagram. It is about your why. It's like some people just go, I want to get in shape just because. Like, because I see that guy, he looks pretty good. I'd like to look like that. That's like, as soon as your pals want a night out and you enjoy those night out, gone. Because it doesn't really mean anything. It's like you've just seen what somebody else has done and thought, I want a wee bit of that. Yeah. You need to know why you want it. And it can't just be because somebody else has got it. And as soon as you like start to understand and dig deeper and start to understand, like, okay, I'm doing this for this, and this is actually going to benefit my life in this way. Like, as soon as you know that's going to benefit you long term and maybe bring, you know, more happiness with your family, bring you more financial stability, whatever it is, as soon as you start to understand the benefits of something, you're much more likely to see the things through in order to get there. And that's where willpower comes from, isn't it? It's just understanding what you're doing something for, and is the juice worth the squeeze, essentially.
So here's a question then: if you got someone who has just getting started, let's say 4 weeks into the journey, they're coming up to the festive period, they've got a few nights out, let's say 3, 4, 5 nights out, right? And they're like, I do want to go to these nights out.
You're not gone.
I still want to be on track. I still want to train. I still want to do everything else. I still want to like make the best possible amount of progress over this time. What is the things that you are putting in place for that person?
The most simple thing, and I'll break it down in the most simple way: plan ahead. Simple as that. Plan ahead. There are so many people that just make these general terms and they go, right, I'm going out, but I'm going to watch what I'm doing. What does that mean? What does that mean? As soon as you drink that pint of tennis, that was nice. I'm having 5 more of them. This man's been there before. I'm having 5 more of them. It's gone. It's out the window. But as soon as you go like that, right, let's be realistic here. I'm going out and I want to enjoy myself. How can I enjoy myself but not completely fall off the cliff, right? I like a pint of tennis. I don't particularly love drinking gin and tonic. This is just using me as an example, for instance. I prefer beer and wine. I don't love spirits, but if I'm dieting, obviously spirits are going to be far better in a calorie circumstance. So I'll be like, I don't want to watch my pals drinking those pints of tennis with the perfect head on them and all the bubbles, and you know, it's hard to watch that, isn't it? So it's like, right, well, 175 calories for a pint of tennis. I can have 2 of those, right? If I limit myself, get it in my head, I can have 2 of those, and then I'll move on to something else. And you pre-track your drinks before you go out. So if you work out how many calories are in X amount of drinks, let's just say it's a drinking thing, pre-track your calories and your drinks. Once you've set it beforehand, you're much more likely to stick to it. And I think I said that to you before as well. Like, I read that in Atomic Habits with James Clear. It was like implementation intention. As soon as you've said the where and the when to something and you've got it in your head, you're something like 50% more likely to actually see something through.
Yep. And it's fucking hard to do.
So hard.
I tell you, I've done it once in my life. I drank 2 pints at the Scotland game. I think it was in Scotland. We were trying to qualify for the World Cup.
And we didn't.
Because we were absolutely rotten.
Because you drank 2 pints.
Probably that's the way the world works, I suppose. But sticking to those 2 pints is the hardest thing I've ever probably not ever done, but it's a bit of an over exaggeration, right? A bit of an over exaggeration, but I've never nursed pints like that in my entire life. It is hard to do, and it will take away from certain other aspects of nutrition and stuff like that. Yeah. But if your goals mean enough to you, that's the sort of stuff that you'll do.
See, when you woke up the next day though, you felt pretty good about yourself. Exactly. You bet you feel pretty good about yourself, because when you actually have a plan and you execute it, when you've done so many attempts and you've failed it, like once you start to like actually flip that,
do this again.
Yeah, you're like,
again.
I'm the man. I'm going to be absolutely shredded. 2 pints, no bother.
So again, when you look at the other aspects of what you were saying, planning ahead, and we look at obviously tracking and logging in and drinks and stuff like that, things that you can do in preparation for that, is the old banking calories. I think it definitely would work, and especially in these circumstances definitely does work. If you've got something that's 7 days away, you scaling back 200 calories per day is going to save you for your overall weekly calories, and save enough calories to limit damage limitation. And it's like it's about you're not going to make the most amount of progress there, but you're going to be in a much better position.
So for someone on 2,000 calories, what would you recommend?
Dropping down.
What would you say? Like on Saturday, they're on 2,000, they're trying to lose weight.
I would scale back 200 per day.
That depends, doesn't it?
Depends on how they're feeling also as well. Like depends
Yeah.
if somebody's in 2,000 calories, again, if it's a male or female, depending on where they're at their journey. If someone's like already struggling in terms of the calories that they're on, then I'd be like, right, just stick to what you're doing right now. You can also look to move a little bit more and maybe spend a little bit more energy. But again, it's down to the individual. But just in an average, if someone's just kind of started out their journey and they're looking to still progress that little bit further, I'd be like, right, you're probably still on an early enough stage to be able to scale back the calories a little bit and also move a little bit more and just make sure that you're ahead of the game essentially. So if you're able to push that weight further down before you go on your night out, you are more conscious on what you're drinking, more conscious on the food that you're eating, you're going to be probably a few pounds heavier the next day and be back roughly where you are.
As long as you know that, that's okay though, isn't it?
Yeah,
like alcohol's going to cause a bit of inflammation. You're going to probably eat more. You're probably not going to hit your protein target. And generally, let's say you're 150 grams of protein and you hit 100 grams of protein. Well, those 50 grams of protein have been replaced by carbs and probably more. And we know that carbs cause a bit more water retention, so we usually have to I'll make an allowance for that to come back down. In terms of what you're saying in terms of a banking strategy, like that is totally client dependent, isn't it? You need to have a conversation with that person firsthand. It's like, realistically, what do you normally do in a night out? Okay, what do you plan and do in this night out? Okay, well, let's estimate you're going to have X amount extra calories on top of this. So here's what we need to save in order to keep a level playing field. And it's kind of like that, isn't it? If somebody says, I'm going out for dinner and drinks, and usually I go to an afters, you're like, right, well, we're probably not going to be able to bank enough calories for that, but we want to damage limit it, so you're going, what realistically do you think you could do, and when are the times that you're least hungry that we could lose certain things from? Do you know what I mean? It's like figuring out what works for that individual. And for some people, it's like you say, like, depends on where they are in their diet. If somebody's a little bit later on in their diet and they're only on 1,500 calories, do I want them to be banking 200 calories per day? Definitely not. No. But I think it might be easier for that person to go, stay in 1,500 calories, but every time you go to the gym to train, I want you to do at least 200 calories worth of cardio on any piece of CV kit of your choice, and you bank calories that way through expenditure. Or you say, bank 0 calories on training days, but on your non-training day, I want you to bank an extra 200 to 300 calories, whatever you feel you can manage on that day. Do this cardio, and then on the day of your night out, I want you to, your breakfast, lunch, dinner, I want you to just have one small meal before you go out and fast and bank as many calories as you can on that particular day. Maybe you're saving 500 calories by just skipping your lunch that day.
You're drunker faster.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Better night.
We spoke about like essentially staying on track, and everything that we've spoke about right now has been about staying on track for fat loss. I've had a few clients as well speaking about that this period is coming up, not only just with social events, but for people who travel for work. Like right now, workload is quite high for some people. Yeah, taking clients out to dinners, and it's almost impossible for them to be like, right, fat loss has to be a priority right now, and it could be 2-3 weeks of that. And I think when I've had a client like this, I've been right, well, let's weigh up the pros and cons. Is it going to be worth you adding that extra stress to your life and taking away from calories that's going to then have an effect on things like your training, your sleep, your recovery, and almost add that pressure and stress of knowing that you're setting yourself up for failure. You're like, I'm going to do something. Knowing, again, this is understanding your own boundaries and your own behaviours. Like, knowing fine well that you're going to go into these next 2 weeks is like, there's no chance this is going to happen. Like, it's almost physically impossible. And I think, again, you weigh up that options with yourself or your client or your coach, and you then figure out, like, is that going to be the best plan? Like, I would say in that point, probably not. I would say, let's get your calories up a little bit. Let's bring you back to maintenance and focus on giving you a wee bit more wiggle room to play around with the calories, as long as we're able to stick to the rest of the fundamentals of trying to train, stay within a decent enough calorie range where you're not completely overboard, being conscious about the food that you're consuming, but still being able to recover well, still be able to get some steps in and actually live a balanced lifestyle for just those few weeks, and take the added pressure away of, like, essentially feeling like a failure. I think so much more people would do with a very good few weeks for them as well. Yeah,
I think, like, again, what we are speaking about here is more than one way to skin a cat, and it's all person dependent, isn't it? It's like, during this time, would you be happy just keeping your head above water and coming out, even? Yeah. Or do you want, because let's say you've invested in a coach and you've paid a lot of money to work with a certain individual, do you want to have made progress every single week, which is going to be some people, but maybe they want to have these nights out and they've paid you solve that problem.
Yeah.
Well, I still want to make progress because I've paid you to make progress. That's essentially what we're here for. But I have these nights out. Can you make this work?
Yeah.
And, you know, people will sometimes in our consultation calls say, I've got this. Is this going to be a problem? 9 times out of 10, it's no, because it shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to give, you know, a resolution surrounding it. So it really depends on that person. Do they want to make progress? And if they do, then it's down to us to lay out that plan and for them to execute that plan. If somebody says, right, you know what, it's a busy time, I'd actually be pretty happy just coming out where I'm at, you know, perfect. That's very easy to plan for. And I would say for 9 out of 10 people, this is a really good time for maintenance, like just to maintain. But there are, like you said, plenty of people right now that do want to diet. Like they want to be in better shape, so they don't want to lose a month of their life and then push things back. So it's like, right, okay, well, let's figure that out then.
Yep.
So yeah, it's there's more than one way to skin a cat essentially. But again, there's plenty of tactics that we've went through. I think a good way to look at things based on decisions is to go, right, is this action that I take going to move me closer towards my goals, keep me right where I am, or move me further away? And it's like, ask yourself that question, be honest with yourself about it, and if the answer is it's going to move me further away, then you need to ask yourself the question, well, is in this circumstance, is it worth it? So it's like, maybe it is. Maybe it's like, well, it's Christmas, I'm with my family, everybody's going to have fun, there's going to be plenty of good memories. In this occasion, it's worth it. I'll deal with that in a couple of weeks' time, because if you gain a couple of pounds, you can lose a couple of pounds. A lot of people have lost, you know, 10, 15 pounds in the run-in, they gain 2 pounds, well, you lose it again. You know, it's not a permanent fixture on your body. Yep. That's what you need to sometimes view things as. But again, maybe that's not for you. Maybe it's a case of, no, it's going to pull me further away. I would rather stay here in a level playing field. Well, maybe you have to make some alterations to the decisions that you're making. So you need to ask yourself a few questions before you do certain things. And that's where having a coach comes in. You've got somebody to help you reflect and help you bounce ideas off of and make a decision based on that.
Yep. It's good. Some good points here.
Anything else to round out?
No, I think that's bang on. I think the recap is essentially figuring out what suits you and plan ahead.
Well, let's finish this off with, what's your favourite Christmas food?
My favourite Christmas food? Oh, pigs and blankets.
It's got to be in it.
It's got to be.
Good.
Start a bit. You also get stuff in that as well. Is that class just a singular food?
No, it's Christmas food, man. Christmas
What
food.
about you, David? You hate turkey.
Turkey's dreadful.
Too dry, innit?
I don't know why.
Too dry, man.
I love turkey. To agree with pigs and blankets, or just Yorkies, and then you just put a bit of everything in it.
One big mash.
Do you know what I love? Honey glazed ham joint.
Honey glazed ham.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, that's my top. Oh yeah, every single bit.
Oh, yeah.
Even the turkey, I'll fly it in.
Oh yeah, but if you want to get round the festive period, making some progress, you can't have all yet.
You better, babe. You better. Well, listen, turkey's very lean. It's also very dry. No gravy, turkey, roast potato. Not even roast potatoes. Boiled.
Imagine, I can actually, it's like, and you need a drink even talking about turkey.
Aye.
Don't you?
I'm finished this up.
Yeah.
Okay. See you
Job
next
done.
week.